so we're rowing along, and we had some kind of special like super skeg put on the boat, and so we hit this lane thing underwater, and it takes the skeg right off, and immediately Chip goes like, "Oh, you know, we lost the like super skeg," and Ted, without missing a beat, ditches the bike, like in one motion. The bike goes this way, Ted, 1 foot on the ground, immediately dives into the water and is like underneath, down, whatever, 10 feet, comes up, he has the skeg in his mouth, you know, like Frogman style.
The very first thing that sticks with me is that day of finals in Sydney, and when it was all over and we're sitting there and the realization hits you that that just happened and we're never going to get that back, right? That was a sobering moment is the only way I can describe it. And I just remember sitting there and like I just lost it, like I was weeping, and it didn't occur to me later or until later, and it was like, you know, for a bunch of guys in that crew, that was it. That was our last run, and so that was a formative moment, I think, with respect to 2004, because like I was just like, I never want that to happen again, right? Like at all costs, let's make sure we don't do that again. And then in 2002, Tatey called me in June and was just like, hey, if you start coming to practice, I'll put you in the 8. And I'm sitting there thinking like, I'm never gonna get a better offer than that ever again. So he was like, yeah, you know, call me next week, let me know what you think. I talked to my boss, cleared it, called him, and I was like, dude, I'll be at practice tomorrow morning. It was just like, yeah, this is cool. And then at Worlds in 2002, you know, I was coming into a crew that had won Lucerne, and I was so happy to be back. Like before the final pre-race meeting, I started crying. I was like, dude. So I had to run off into the bushes real quick, and it's like, oh my god, I'm so happy.
It's tough to pinpoint moments. I don't think I do that as much as I think about the composition of the crew. And I think what allowed us to succeed was we had the right combination of personalities, and it was the way everyone accommodated everyone else. And I think there were several of us that had our moments near the edge, I think once or twice in that Olympic year, and I think everyone kind of stepped up to support each other. You know, I had a moment where a couple weeks where selection wasn't going well for me, and I left to go to Skull, and ended up changing my mind and coming back, and just the way
during the summer.
It was after the first speed order.
Yeah.
When my partner was injured and didn't get the race, and I just thought I was reading the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
But what stands out for me is the fact that everyone supported me when I stepped away to Skull and supported me when I came back. Yeah. Even the guys I was competing directly with for a seat. And I think that, you know, that was true of the entire group that summer, but also that heat.
Well, I definitely remember things from the actual trip itself. I remember processing through in Athens, getting all our gear. That was a pretty big deal. That seemed really cool at the time.
How many teams had you been on before that?
This was the first Olympic team. I'd been a part of one World Championship team and 2 under-23 teams. So it was all new for me.
Yeah.
It all felt very new and very exciting.
Would you have considered yourself like the rookie-ish guy of the team?
No, at the time, no.
I
would have considered myself the youngest guy, but I definitely felt like I belonged there.
Yeah.
But you know, at the same time, it's such an exciting and new and different experience, and you know, it's just, you know, yeah, it's so thrilling to be there. And even after getting off the plane, you know, we traveled from, you know, the East Coast to Greece, and we checked in, and then we got on a flight in the middle of the night to Bulgaria. And the one thing I actually do remember is there's all this crazy security in Bulgaria. All these guys with guns, guys with cop cars, dogs, everything, and yet they left the lights on in the bus. So we were rolling down in the middle of the night, this freeway, with all the lights on in the bus, just staring out into the darkness. Yeah, you can see
everyone can see in.
Absolutely everything.
You can't see anything.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it was the heat, just because those conditions were not optimal, and we didn't really know how fast we were. We knew we were fast, but we didn't know how fast we were. And just the fact that we had confidence enough in that last 500 to just go and not really feel like we were pushed at the end of it. I remember finishing it being like, I'm not even that tired after that finish. And Wolff was like, me either. And then that just gave us more and more confidence. And Mike has this story where, I don't know, I don't think I was being cocky at the time, but I might have been. And he said, I think we got to work on the sprint. And I just casually said, I don't think we're going to need a sprint. He's like, I don't think we're going to need a sprint. And he remembered that, because after the final we didn't really sprint. Yeah. He's like, I guess you were right. So that kind of, just the confidence, like leading up to it was, I think, the number one factor for me. Like Beery always had this thing where he'd say everything's coming together, because everything was coming together. It was weird. It was like, it wasn't out of body, but it was kind of out of body. We were there, but like you could see, like as it was transpiring, how out of body it felt, just because of like the unit that we had.
The training was really intense. From World Championships Milan 2003 to Athens 2004, I think we trained 1,000 times. And it was manageable because of the way we broke it up, and that's a credit to Mike and to Ted and to Chris Wisnowski. We trained hard in the fall here in Princeton, and it was great. And we rode as long as we could on the water up until December when the lake started to freeze. And then we moved to San Diego for about 3 months, and a few of us were a little nervous about that because history was not kind to spending a lot of time in San Diego, specifically the 96 crew, and talking to some of the veterans like Jeff Lopacki and Bob Kaler and Porter Collins. Like everyone wanted to kill each other from being isolated in San Diego, only rowing, no other activities going on. And while at times you need that immersion to focus on the goal or the mission, because of the repetitive nature of our sport, I think that the group that was training at the time, the 30 guys that were training at the Princeton Training Center at the time, it was healthy to have some distractions. Because, you know, Mike is very demanding, he's very tough, he expects, you know, nothing but the best all the time. And for those of us who had been in the system for a few years, it can be pretty enervating. And so going out to San Diego, we had a very defined training program wherein we would go 2.5 weeks on and then we would have 3 days off. So it allowed for us to train really hard for 2.5 weeks, and then we could escape. He'd give us a long weekend, he'd give us a furlough, he'd give us a pass, and we could shoot back home or, you know, go on a little trip just to get away from the group, to decompress. And then you arrive back Sunday night or Monday morning and you're ready to go. And that was really helpful.
You were training here in Princeton, and then we flew over to Athens. We did like a staging in Athens, and then we flew to Bulgaria on this private plane. And Bulgaria was completely foreign in the sense that we're staying at this hotel, we show up, and you're looking up the hotel, and it's like 6 floors, and on every floor there's a dude with a submachine gun standing outside like this. We had armed escort everywhere we went, and it would be like the team bus, like armed escort in front of us, and then like a donkey hauling a cart behind us. And we were at a hotel that was the hotel that had been one of the major hosts for the 1983 Warsaw Pact like games or something, which was, I guess, their version of the Goodwill Games, or I don't know, whatever it was. And they had a giant pool in the back that was like a water park type pool with water slides and like, you know, bar with the underwater bar stools. And so we would eat breakfast, and it was a classic Eastern European thing. It was all you could eat breakfast, but the plates were like maybe this big around. And so you'd show up and you'd have a tray that would have 15 you know, like teacup saucers on it full of food. And so we'd eat breakfast, and then you'd roll out to the pool, and we didn't appreciate that this was a top optional pool, which, you know, many people didn't really appreciate, but most of the guys in the men's team thought was reasonably appropriate. At any rate, like that quickly became off limits.
When you're in the mix, when you're in the middle of this whole thing, you spend 99.9% of your time worrying about whether you're going to be on the team and not enough time enjoying the moment, enjoying the experience. And if there's anything that I could do over again, it wouldn't necessarily just be the race, but it would be just those times when things were just going great, like you had a great practice and your blades never touched the water for 45 minutes, or you know, you're out in a pair with, you know, one of my favorite people to row with was Wolff Moser. He and I, we seem to click in a pair, and there are times when man, I would just love to go out and redo a couple of those practices. But for sure the moment, like for sure just trying to live in the moment again, rather than worrying so much about the end result, because you get so caught up. Am I going to make the team? Am I going to make the boat? Are we going to do well in this race? Are we going to place? Are we going to medal? You get so caught up in that you don't have fun in the journey. And so, like, if I could go back and do another 4 years, that's what I would try to focus on more, is the journey, not so much the outcome. It's easy to say that having won a medal at the end of it all, but for sure, if I could do it all over again, it would be that.
I do very specifically remember seeing you, Ed, at the race before the race started.
At the start.
At the start line,
I remember that well.
And I remember, you know, I had a real sense leading up to the race, sort of internally, besides a few very nervous moments, that things were just sort of like falling together. Like they were sort of, just every little piece was falling into place. You know, we had all of our support staff was there, and like Imes and Tatey and Coach White was at the race. I mean, it just, I don't know. You know, it seemed like every little particle that could fall and happen the right way did for us, you know, at that time. And I think the further I get from it, the more I realize, the more lucky I feel. You know, that everything happened the way it did, and we got hot at the right time, and you know, we were lucky, really lucky that we were able to capitalize on it.
The one moment would be that really sticks out is we came back from a training camp in San Diego. We spent 3 months there, and we did all these a couple pair matrices, and just so we've been switching guys around. And then Mike kind of had the top 10 guys picked, and he sent us back early from San Diego.
Right.
And he put a lineup out. That lineup, that race, ended up racing. Just one day, he just randomly put it out, and it clicked. Like, it immediately clicked, and you just knew that it was fast. From stroke one, it was like set, and it was easy, and it was fluid and just moving. And it just, from that point on, I think all of us knew that was the boat. And I think Mike knew it, because he came back in and he was like, that was pretty good, what'd you think? And everybody was just like, yeah, that's it. I think that is like, and that was early, that was, you know, that was March?
Spring,
yeah. March or April.
Yeah.
And so that was early for Mike. You know, normally selection, you know, in Sydney, selection went on all the way to mid-August.
Yeah.
And that was miserable. So this was like, it was like, I don't know, it just felt right. And so that's a big moment, I think.
We had what was called the morale-o-meter. And so we would draw a thermometer, kind of like a fundraising thermometer, on the whiteboard in San Diego. And this was a covertly explicit way of expressing to Mike, kind of it was a pulse check.
Yeah.
Whether he wanted it or not, but it was important for us. So the top of the morale-o-meter was going home, you know, going back to Princeton, and the bottom was shit's broke.
Yeah.
So there were times when the morale-o-meter fell to almost shit's broke. Like Crash Bees was just above shit's broke. Yeah. Because no one wanted to go to Crash Bees.
We went through that whole experience in 2002 and 2003, and it was a very different group of guys, and it didn't have the same ethos, and it wasn't that the guys weren't as intense or weren't trying as hard. It was just like it didn't gel in the same way that the crew from 2000 did, and you know, all of those guys, like Bob and Porter and T. Welch. Something wasn't right. And with the 04 bunch, from the instant we got in the boat together, which really didn't happen until, I don't know, sometime maybe in like April or May, it was the first time we rode together, it was automatic speed, and the attitude of the guys toward one another was extremely open and extremely, you know, everybody was totally ready to like subjugate whatever they wanted to do to the will of the crew. And you're just like, wow, like this is something special.
You know, the other moment is, yeah, I'm sure other people have talked about it. You know, when we were warming up for the final, we got about a quarter of the way through our warm up, and I could hear Brian through the mic, through Chip's mic, say, "I'm warm."
Yeah. So you could hear him say that.
Yeah, I could hear him say that, and right there I knew that my warm up was done. I needed more warm up, but my warm up was done, and I felt like, you know, I knew who was the most important guy in that crew. Or I think everyone in the crew kind of had that mindset that everyone else in the crew was the most important guy. So when it came to something like that, everyone was willing to kind of relent on whatever it was they needed in the
that's interesting. Yeah.
for the interest of the crew as a whole. I think that's what was unique about that crew. You know, talent aside, it was the way that we worked together, the personalities fit.
The boat manufacturer and Matt Imes and Mike Irwin, who was the boatman, Matt was the assistant coach, and Ted Nash was the assistant coach, they'd all devised this elaborate like water pump / sump pump system to take water out of the boat. And so they said, well, we got to test this thing. So we go down, we're sitting on the dock, and Ted and Matt probably put like 8 to 10 like full, you know, 50, whatever it is, I don't know, giant bucketfuls
like
of water.
Home Depot buckets.
Yeah, Home Depot style buckets into this thing. I mean, like there's water up, like not just touching the heels, but like up over the bottom of your heel, like touching the ankle. And we're rowing along.
So you shove off in that.
Shove off, and then we're rowing along. And the idea is like somehow this system's gonna like pump the water out as we're rowing along. And so we're rowing along, and during this row, two things happen. One is that we're rowing along, and Mike Tatey, who was the coach, he's sitting on his bike on the side, and Mike was religious about spacing. So the whole thing was like, okay, at 20 strokes a minute or at 18 strokes a minute, are we getting, you know, the puddle like X number of feet beyond the stern? And we always had really good spacing. Like we actually could row steady state pretty well in that boat. But if you have 350 pounds of water, like we were carrying like 2 extra dudes worth of water in the boat, that doesn't work so well. And so Mike goes ballistic.
So the national team, we have been successful in large part by the generosity and altruism of Princeton University. Without, our team would not be as successful, and certainly we would not have, I don't think we would have won had we been training in other places. Princeton allows for you to work to the extent that your training allows, and Mike encouraged that. Mike encouraged us to work. There are a lot of cultural opportunities around here, right between Philadelphia and New York, DC, Boston. Guys could escape on the weekends. And we had a very set schedule. We practiced twice a day, every day except for Wednesday. We had Wednesday afternoon off. And we practiced once Saturday night and once Sunday night. So we had space, again, to decompress, let our hair down, recover, relax, just kick it. And in years when we don't have that certain schedule, the team has not done as well. And so as I introspect or reflect on lessons learned, people forget history, and coaches try to reinvent the wheel and come up with all these different things. Let's do with what we know. Wins.
Leading up that whole, even here when we were trying to hit time standards, you would just give us one and we'd hit it. Like if you wanted to go faster, we'd go faster, which was weird because like I think we went 3:57 for a 1500. Yeah, I think that might have been our fastest, but like he said, 3:57 for the practice is how fast he wanted to go, and we hit that.
And I remember checking into the, going through customs into the Bulgarian airport. I remember processing through in the American University in Greece. I remember getting to the course for the first time. All these little just snapshots that stick in my mind.
Like pictures.
And it's almost hard to even think about how they all fit together and in a coherent story, but I definitely remember just, like I said, little snapshots.
Yeah, we sort of broke up into fours a bunch, and we had two two fast fours out of that 8. And you know, 4 that I was in that ended up going to CERN and winning CERN, like we would get beat by the other 4 quite a bit.
Yeah.
So we're trading pieces a lot. So I think that kept the level up.
It's interesting because that 4 is sort of seen as, you know, like untouchable 4, like this magic 4. And so out here though.
Yeah, you talk the bow 4 with the other guys that weren't in that 4. They're like, we crush those guys daily.
Oh wow.
They always get a little bit miffed.
Yeah.
And there was a constant tension in our crew between, you know, basically a bunch of guys didn't want to train at all, and then you had a bunch of guys who were kind of like normal and like trained a little bit and felt like they needed to train in order to be good. And then you had like there were some guys who basically I think didn't care about training. And Mike was clearly on the end of he wanted more training as opposed to less training, and so there's this constant tension. And so we get to Bulgaria, and Mike says, "Well, guys, rig the boat up and go for like a short row just to make sure everything is good." And so we rig the boat up, and it's a 2,000-meter man-made lake. And so we shove off the dock, and we row down to the end, and we row back, and we put the boat away. And
short row,
because that was what we do. And it was classic because it was clearly like, you know, Brian and a bunch of the guys were like, well, that was good, and everybody else was like, well, okay. And so we put the boat away, and then Mike's like, so how'd the row go? And we're like, oh, it's really good. It's really good. Well, what'd you do? Well, on the first lap, you know, we went down like half slide for 500 meters, and then we did some full slide. And then we turned it around, and we did a little bit of by 6s for like 500 meters, and then we finished it off with some full slide, like, you know, 75% pressure, 3/4 pressure. And Mike's like, well, yeah, but then what did you do after that? No, we just took it in. We just took the boat in. Well, you did what? What? You did 1 lap? And after that, I think he started to get he was just like, this is bull, you know, I can't take it.
Everything was set up for us to do well. So it's a matter of us executing at the right time. When Mike finally named the team, I don't think there were that many surprises about who made the team, and maybe a couple. But all of us knew we had a mission, and it's tough, it's challenging. I think there were guys that didn't go to Athens that if they were in the boat, we could have had the same success.
Yeah.
And that's a credit to the depth of the team. And when I say team, I'm referring to the Princeton Training Center. I'm not necessarily referring to the 2004 named Olympic team.
Right.
I'm talking about the guys that we trained with every day that are multiple medalists.
For sure.
And unfortunately, there are only 16 slots.
Yep.
And it's a log jam.
The last memory I have before the race was we were out, and I don't know, it was maybe like Friday afternoon before the final or something like that. And we were always doing mock racing, right? We'd get out on the course, we would do a start and 20, you know, at sub pressure, sub cadence, but we'd just be talking through and visualizing the race. And got to about 400 to go, and we're the only crew out on the lake except for maybe the Italian quad, which we were often the, you know, 2 crews out there. And I said, you know, 350 meters to go. Guys, it's gonna be close. And all of a sudden, Chris Aarons, just in this indignant voice, says, no, it's not. And everybody was like, whoosh. And then, you know, like super locked in. And we finished off like that last, whatever it was, 300 meters, just so crisp. And then, like, you know, we all went home, and it was just, that was like the buzz of the crew. That was, we were all talking about that, like, God, how awesome was that?
The problem is we only have medium speed rail in this country.
I know, we need some high speed stuff.
Well, you guys don't understand, there's heavy rail and there's light rail.
Okay, here we go, guys. Speed run. Check. Okay. This is going to be 5 and 5, live action. Okay, so full contact, no washing out, no lips. Sit forward, feathered. We're gonna whip it. Ready to square and square.
This is going to be bad. He might break the boat in half.
5 and 5, live contact. JR. Barry. Attention. Go. Relax. Finish. Breathe. Full. Now 5. Legs and 2. Sha. No lift. 4. Wow. 5. Paddle. Nice. Yeah, we do still got it. A little bit of check. Something we couldn't work out in a couple of practices.